So my kids and I have this thing that we like to do where we go on Disney Plus, like if we're trying to find something to watch, and instead of finding something to watch, we just watch trailers forever. It doesn't matter if they're trailers for shows and movies that we've already seen or ones that are upcoming. Our favorites are the ones that like really pique our interest, and we will legitimately watch them over and over and over again. And it got me thinking, students look at the way we open lessons and units the same way that my kids and I look at trailers. The gateway activity is basically the trailer for what's to come in the classroom. And if it falls flat, that's the one that we're not going to finish, right? Like we're not going to finish watching that trailer. I have already lost most of our students before we even start.
Which is why we care so much about it. And so one of our very favorite strategies that we want to share with you right now is a gateway activity using picture books. Picture books are the perfect little intro to big concepts and themes. They're engaging in a way that's unexpected. Here's a fun fact. We have a whole lesson ready made for you and absolutely free to download that uses the book Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And we use it to introduce the genre of dystopia and all of the big ideas within it. So if you've ever been in the market for tricking and deceiving your students with something that's really engaging and fun, this is the lesson for you. Every single time we use Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in the classroom, students are walking away intrigued. They're talking to each other. They're talking out the door about what happened in class. I mean, dreams really do come true. And they're thinking about what's coming the next day. All of these signs of a very successful gateway lesson.
And did we mention that the whole lesson is free? You can go and download it right now and come back to it whenever you are ready. Head to the show notes for this episode or go to shop.bravenewteaching.com/cloudy to download this lesson today. We can't wait to see how it works in your classroom. This episode is brought to you by Curriculum Rehab by us, the team here at Brave New Teaching. It is the first and only teacher PD of its kind, a course to help teachers like you by guiding you through creating your own personal framework for curriculum. You make it work for you, your students, and your unique situation because nobody else knows what the kiddos in your classroom need the way that you do. Curriculum Rehab takes all of the resources available to you, all of the lessons, the assessments, the activities, all of the texts, everything that could possibly be there for you, and it helps you organize what you actually need in order to attain your teaching objectives. These are the strategies that Amanda and myself have used in our own classrooms, have developed over very long years of teaching and figuring things out, combined together to create this framework and these strategies that we can guide you through. This course will give you the tools you need for a complete curriculum overhaul or to start from scratch. Wherever you are on that continuum, it does it all for you and with you on your timeline. So start today, do a little bit more in a couple of months, and then pick it up next summer. It's Teacher PD the way it should be on your own time. Head to curriculumrehab.com/course for more information, or just head to the show notes for this episode. We cannot wait to see you there. It's finally time to take control of what goes on in your own classroom and create the curriculum of your dreams. All right, let's get back into the show. Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching, and welcome to another installment of Camp BNT. Hello, everybody. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Marie has been in a sing-songy mood all day.
I have. I think it's because one of my ears is completely plugged, and so it's almost like I'm harmonizing with myself with all the echoes that are going on inside of my head. You know, it's a good time.
I mean, there are lots of times where I wish I could live inside your head, and this has got to be top of the list.
Careful what you wish for. You never know.
I mean, podcasting with you kind of is like living inside of your head. And in a lot of ways, we share a brain. So
it's a little bit terrifying. Well, speaking of sharing a brain,
I smoothed it there. That was actually a good transition.
The interview that we have for you today, I pause saying interview because I just feel like I especially found my spiritual doppelganger in the author with whom we spoke, Libba Bray. First of all, we immediately started like doing the same mannerisms, and I watched Amanda's face go, oh, what have I gotten myself into? There's two of them. It was such a delight to speak with her. about all the things. We did finally, our conversation was long. Like, as you were turning on this episode, you were like, oh, she's a lengthy one. And it's because we talk about books, we talk about being an author, we talk about kids in the classroom, and we talk about so many things. And then we talk about musical theater. And then we talk about so many. Amazing.
Also, just so you know, when we come back from music, when this interview starts, it's not going to start clean because guess what? We were like when we meet with authors, we kind of give them our little spiel, like we introduce ourselves, like we talk for a little while to kind of get comfortable. I mean, that took a whole like half a second with Libba. And so we were already like chit-chatting and we hadn't started recording. We're like, oh my gosh, we need to hit record. So like you're going to like just jump in to the middle of our conversation. Like if that's any indication, the kind of human Libba is. And I mean, okay, so Marie's going to tell you more about her, but I have to tell you, like, for me, the best part of these interviews is before podcasting, I never had a connection with the author behind some of my favorite stories. And Libba is new to me. Her work is new to me. I read Under the Same Stars in February, I want to say, March. And I was really having a hard time, like, getting behind, like, what's it going to be like to talk to her? And when you look at her, like, lineup of books, she hops from genre to genre, topic to, I mean, there is nothing about her work that's like, oh yes, this is classically Libba. You know, like our buddy Ruda. Like Ruda has got like a thread, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect with Libba, and like finding such a soul sister was unbelievably delightful.
Her website has this amazing bio that reads like a short story almost.
You need to read a little bit. Yes.
Well, I know I need to read part of it, but like, which part do I read? I feel like this might be it. Okay. There's a subtitle that says, please do not ask me again why I am so odd. Then there's a whole like paragraph about when they moved to Corpus Christi and her brother had to have like neurosurgery from a BB gun accident. Like, and then it goes into, by the time I was a rebellious adolescent with some spiffy wardrobe choices to show for it, I was heavily into rock and roll punk, Monty Python, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and new wave videos on MTV. My favorite book was Catcher in the Rye, the preferred tome of serial killers and dysfunctional stalkers, and I watched a lot of old Hammer horror movies because I like my horror served up with anachronistic beehive hairdos and a hint of Carnaby Street. My plans were to run away with an English rock star and live in the Cotswolds, a place I'd never been, but sounded terribly glamorous, where we would wear lots of eyeliner and write songs about hats. This was not to be. I just like...
She has such a wonderful sense of humor and such range. I think I'm really impressed by her range. I mean, that's something, again, like I wouldn't have known that had we not talked to her. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad that you all have a podcast where you get the inside look.
Right. Well, and she was in a band. They are no longer performing, but you can find them online. And she's writing a musical. She's writing a musical right now. And it's like Rocky Horror meets Sweeney Todd meets Rent meets all of the amazing, and then meets her just like whip smart sense of humor and insight. I just can't wait. And I cannot wait for everybody to listen to this episode. Our intro has run long enough, I think, because I don't think we're doing it justice. You need to just jump in. Don't you think, Amanda?
I mean, quite literally, that's what we're going to just like kind of shove you.
Yeah, you'll just be in our conversation. All right, friends, cheers with our coffee because that is what I'm drinking right now.
And if you haven't already, go to bravenewteaching.com/camp.
Yes.
You can have the workbook evidence that you went through. You're going to want to take notes anyway on this episode. Yeah. There are so many little gems and little quotes that are going to pop out to you that you're going to want to remember when you're in the doldrums of some horrible teaching week. You're going to want to come back to this conversation. So bravenewteaching.com/camp, get your workbook, get your little reading pages. All the goodies are there for you. So don't push play until you've downloaded that.
Yeah. And have so much fun. And we will catch you on the flip side. All right. Cue the music.
You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a high school teacher from Southern California.
Join us after the show and happy hour to extend your BNT experience with instant access to our resources, workshops, and courses.
Visit shop.bravenewteaching.com/happy hour to join us today. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show.
Oh, Samira just started following me. We talked to Samira Ahmed yesterday. She said she loves you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her too. She's amazing.
Freaking delightful. She just followed me
She
back.
is a delight. Yes.
Well, aren't you special, Amanda?
Well, I told her that I was going to, I'm in Chicago. Well, kind of, I'm between Chicago and Milwaukee. So I told her I was going to stalk her, whether she liked it or not, since we're basically neighbors. So
I will happily follow your podcast. I post infrequently because usually my thing is like, oh, I should post something on social media for proof of life. And then I'm like, or I could make a grilled cheese sandwich. And I'm going to tell you, melted cheese pretty much wins out every time.
It feels more lifeful, I think, than the internet. Yeah.
I know you need to pay someone else to do that for you, Libba. I tell the same thing. Ruta Sepetys is another one of our friends from the podcast. I tell Ruta the same thing. I'm like, Ruta, people want to hear from you, but you don't need to do it. She's like, really? I'm like, really? Like, do you know how many Gen Zers out there would love to like run your social media account? And
sure,
but I don't know. I mean, like, I would happily have somebody do the tech stuff, but because I can barely use my own phone. But then it's like, I also feel like, well, I want to be myself.
Yeah. No, I get the same thing.
Myself.
But
I get the same thing.
Content, it needs to be someone that you like. See, that's what I told Ruta. I said, I would do it for Ruta because you need like a super fan. A super fan would do it really well.
Sure.
Well, I have to say, I love Ruta as well. And I just saw her last month at North Texas Teen Book Festival.
Oh, yes.
It was like old home week because the last time I saw her was the beginning of March 2020 at that festival. So I was like, Ruta.
Oh, yes. Well, your book gave me some Sepetys vibes too, which is really exciting. We'll talk about it more, but like we love when books and authors start to kind of echo each other and like the books can coexist in these really cool little lists. And we love that. So yeah, that was exciting.
It's sometimes uncanny the way that obviously we're concerned about the world and we're thinking about a lot of same things. But yeah, sometimes I do have a funny story if you have a moment.
Oh, yes. You know what? I've just decided that this interview is just going to jump in where we just started talking.
We're just talking.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking to author extraordinaire Libba Bray. Let's hear the story.
What is it Steve Buscemi says? And I think it's Armageddon. Strap in and embrace the horror.
Yes, yes.
So this is going back many years ago. I'm sure you know the flashback music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll edit that in.
And I was at, I think it was back when there was like a New York teen book festival. And it was I was working on Beauty Queens. And I was sitting around with John Green and we were talking as one does.
Mais oui.
And, mais oui, c'est vrai.
What?
Yes, we all have to sound like Serge Gainsbourg coughing up phlegm. Now they'll never let me back in Paris. Anyway, so John Green, where was I? Here we are, John Green. And we're sitting around talking. And I said, I'm working on this book about a plane load of teen beauty queens who crash on an island. He said, I'm working on a desert island book. And I said, and he was like, huh. And I said, well, I'm sure they're completely different. I mean, mine has footnotes. And he said, mine has footnotes.
How
and I was like, mine's coming out first, John Green.
How do you like them apples, John?
Anyway, and I guess he decided not to work on that book. But it was one of those like spooky moments where it's just like, no way. Desert island books with footnotes.
Footnotes.
Okay, there you go.
Part of it, I have to believe, is like a deep connection to who you're writing for.
Yeah. Yes.
And just their, like truly, like where their trends are headed. And I don't mean that in the like poppy trends, but more of just like where their focus and their attention goes. And it's just being able to anticipate that. I find that stuff fascinating. Like whether it's literature or visual art or even like fashion or music, like just when you've got artists that are all doing similar things at the same time, it's not like you're all getting together and saying, okay, what are we going to do next?
No, we're all swimming in the same creative soup,
Right. You're syncing your cycles. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my students call that Bluetoothing.
Bluetoothing.
By the way.
What?
They'll tell me, yes, like when all of their like periods are link, they'll be like, we Bluetoothed. So then we just, so of course they've decided that I'm an alpha and that I will be like the anchor Bluetoother. I can't remember what they called me because we just had, I guess. Yes. Mine is so blue that it's like almost black. Yes. I don't know where that was going.
Happening?
But I don't know. But
we just did our spring musical. We just did Legally Blonde.
Okay.
And we had a very large cast and crew. It was like 80 kids in cast and crew combined because we just do a big, huge, everybody come on in for the spring musical. And what do you know? By the end of Tech Week, we were all like, ugh. And then we were like, did we all Bluetooth? We did. We Bluetooth, didn't we?
I cannot wait to share this with all of my girlfriends. None of us are Bluetoothing anymore. So we could just be like,
see,
I got some lingo for you. Picked up from my new friends, Marie and Amanda. Like, Bluetoothing.
What the kids are saying these days.
Well, yeah, and I got that one straight from some 17 and 18-year-olds. Okay. Yeah, they were like, you Bluetoothed us. And I'm like, that sounds active, but I did nothing of the sort. That feels accusatory.
It feels like a headline.
I love any time a noun can be verbed.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yes. I spend a lot of time sitting around going like, can I verb that? Can I verb that? Verb. It's what's happening.
Kids are so good at that.
I know.
They do. They verb everything.
They do.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that they make it's also my argument sometimes when people get uptight about language and I'm like, language is a living organism. It changes all the time. We are not speaking Latin, even though my mother made me take Latin.
Even though she would like you to. Yeah.
It's really helpful in Paris. So, yeah, I was like, I'll have the Latin special, please. But it's organic and it's fun and it's playful and, Shakespeare and hip hop. And, it's like it should be fun. It should be playful. I love that.
Okay. No, Maria, this is the perfect time for
it's definitely fun. Right? Go, Amanda, go.
Officially, because that I kind of feel like you've just that felt kind of like a manifesto, like what you just said. That felt very like I'm a writer, like this is me. So like why don't like let's segue into like a little bit of an actual introduction.
Sure.
Like tell us your story and like how you got where you are and like what you've been writing for the world.
Sure. Well, I will try the Reader's Digest condensed version, but as you've seen, squirrel brain, so it could be all over the place. I like to call it the symphonic mind, which is why I left my house one day wearing 2 different shoes and didn't notice till I got on the subway. And by then I'd put my hair. So it's just, that's what it is. But yes. So, when I look back, I realized that I came from a family where there was a lot of storytelling. My mother was an English teacher. My father was Presbyterian minister. So, I jokingly say that I was trained to see the world in terms of symbolism, which is great when you're decoding literature. Not so helpful when you're making toast. Like I have explained to this bread, man versus the environment, and yet it is still bread. I don't know how much clearer I could make it.
I feel like you did your job.
I'm like, do you want a simile or a metaphor? Just be toast. So, so I grew up in this family where that was happening. And there was a lot of storytelling. Southern family, things were always a story. And I have, you might be surprised to learn, I had sort of a wacky family. And also I was crazy about we watched a lot of PBS. I blame PBS for a lot. Although I joke about that, but now I'm just like, no, don't take my PBS.
Careful.
Watched a lot of PBS, but also and watched a lot of Hammer horror. I was a horror fan, so that was a form of storytelling. Was I would get invited to the sleepovers because I was really not popular, only so I could tell the scary stories. So it was a form of survival, but also comedy. I was heavily into Monty Python, Mad Magazine, Douglas Adams. I was a huge comedy nerd and National Lampoon. And that informed a lot of my writing. Like when I would look back and I see some of the things that I would write, they were either spooky or they were funny or they were a combination of the two.
Both, right?
And,
yep.
But I was I knew I wanted to do something creative and I was in theater, which is also storytelling. but I really wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do with my life. And honestly, the way I became a writer was that when I was 18, this was about 3 weeks after my high school graduation, I was driving my father to the airport, dropped him off, and was coming back. I was learning to drive stick, so I was trying to get a little more road under me. And when I came back, it started to rain and I hydroplaned, and my car hit one of those big light poles going probably about 30 miles an hour, and the whole front end caved in and my seat went forward. Was not wearing a seatbelt because we didn't believe in seatbelts or SPF back then. And I hit the steering wheel with my face. And it was basically 1 inch higher or lower. I wouldn't be here to tell this story. But it demolished my face. I lost my eye, broke my legs, and was in intensive care. And then essentially the first adult decision I had to make was not like, what posters am I going to put up in my dorm room, but am I going to allow doctors to remove my eye? Because it had to be my decision. And now I'm going to tell you a side story that also tells you a little more about my perspective, which is that my mother was sitting there with me before I was going to be taken into surgery for this enucleation. And she said, well, honey, there's good news and there's bad news. And I said, well, what's the bad news? Well, we still haven't been able to find your contact lens. And I said, what's the good news? She said, well, you're not going to need it.
Yeah.
And we cracked up, and all of the hospital people around us, I couldn't see, but I could hear. They were like, like, oh my God. And it was like so perfect. And we were
that's
crying,
so good.
laughing,
Yes.
But the rest of the story is that, of course, I was determined to go to college in the fall. And as an 18-year-old, you feel immortal. And
suddenly, well, what else could happen at that point, right? You're like, I've already done it.
But I thought, oh, well, they're just going to wave a magic wand and I'm going to look the way I used to look. And that did not happen. And so when I got settled in my dorm, I went, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This is for real. There's no do-over.
Yeah.
And it was really the most brutal year of my life. But what saved me was that one of my graduation gifts had been this journal. And I'd never had a journal before. I'd had like a little diary when I was 12, but I started to write in that journal. I started to write everything that I could not say out loud. I said that at the time I was broken on the outside, but really broken on the inside. And that journal kept me alive. And then it got to the point where I was like, I really like this writing thing. I looked forward to it because it was about being able to put all my feelings and the things that felt true to me that, we do sometimes have to hide from the world.
Sure.
And I think especially too, having people say, oh, you're so strong. You think, well, I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Yeah, you have to keep being
right.
strong, right?
I'm dying inside, but I'm. So that was really it. I was like, you can tell the truth in this. And also incredible. I would write while listening to music, which is another form, of course, of storytelling. And listening to, I remember the album that really kind of saved me was Quadrophenia by The Who, because it's a very depressing album, but it ends hopefully. And I felt like, that there was kinship there. And I was like, oh, see, people can do this. And it helps other people like me feel okay. So that was really the start of it. And then did playwriting for a while, which, if you look up least lucrative career in the dictionary, say, why did you be a playwright? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that, wrote some plays, and then eventually started writing YA and fell in love. Loved it. I've always loved it.
That is an incredible story. I hope that you've heard this before. I'm sure you have, but that is an incredible story.
Really is.
It's funny. I was on a panel just recently with Brian Selznick, I can't wait to read his new book, especially after hearing about it. And he's such a lovely human. And he was talking about how in his new book, one of the characters, Brian he was asthmatic and he had to have this surgery when he was young. And so there's a scar on his chest. And he said that he was a little bit concave and that he was very self-conscious about it because, come on, we're teenagers.
Right.
And
what kid isn't? Yeah.
He said, I had never written about it. And so I decided to give this character that trait. And I thought, I have written one essay in Hope Wins about the accident itself, but I've never really written about it. And so I was like, oh gosh, that's really interesting. I think, in sort of obscure ways I have, I think there's a lot of my experience in going bovine, but not directly. So it's just interesting. And I think, and again, I was struck by, I think for those of us who write for young people, it feels like a mission in many ways, because we really have never forgotten what it feels like. First of all, we never stop coming of age, but we've never forgotten what it feels like to have that vulnerability, and also, the joy of discovery when everything's new, and also the intensity of the feelings because everything's new. And anyway, so I was struck when he was saying that. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, Brian. I'm glad you did that. You took your vulnerability and shared it with other people.
It's one of the most healing things that we can do for our students too, right? When we share these books with them. I think that's what always draws us to speaking to authors is like that's the triangle that we love so much to see.
Yay!
Yes.
Connection. We're Bluetoothing.
We are Bluetoothing right now. And okay, so I don't know, because Under the Same Stars came out very recently, so I'm not sure how many of our teachers have gotten a chance to already read it. Can you kind of give like your Under the Same Stars elevator pitch to anyone who hasn't yet grabbed it? And then I want to talk about all three narrators and alternating timelines, but let's first do the elevator pitch.
Okay. Under the Same Stars is written under my pen name, Stephen King. No, I'm kidding. Under the Same Stars is a multi-generational story set in 3 different timelines: World War II Germany, 1980s punk scene in West Berlin, and New York City in the spring of 2020 during COVID. And what all of these stories have in common is that they are united by an 80-year-old mystery, the disappearance of 3 teens on the night of the winter solstice in 1941, and how those secrets reverberate through time and through all these generations.
That's like the perfect elevator. I don't know how you can listen to that and not want to read it instantly, because I can confirm that that's exactly what this book is. And the experience of
I also am here to verbally engrave the Lord's Prayer on the head of a pin. Just let me know. No, you get to where you're like, let me nail it. Let me see if I can nail it. Land.
Zing. Zing. That's it. That's exactly what this book.
I like validation. Thank you.
Yep. Gold stars.
Okay, so I really want to hear about, so we've got this alternating, not alternating timelines. I guess it is alternating timelines. How did talk to us about concept. Like, how did we arrive here at this is how this story is going to get told? One of the hardest things I think teachers find in our unit planning is sometimes it can be really hard to teach structure, because so many classics follow a very similar, right? We've all seen the original plot diagram, that triangle. I love it when stories don't follow a typical plot diagram, because we can interrupt that and talk about there are other ways to tell stories, people. So this is one, I'm putting it on the top of the shelf as an example of a way to tell another story. How did that come to you though?
Okay, I'm going to answer that. But first, I'm jazzed by what you were saying about teaching different forms.
Yes.
Because structure is the toughest thing. And getting back to symphonic mind, I think we find ways to work with our own brains. And sometimes I do writing workshops with young people. And one of the exercises that I enjoy is the 5-minute autobiography, where you write the autobiography, but you weave in one lie. But I will say, this could be like your entire life story. I was born on a farm. I grew up in, Illinois, blah, blah, blah. It could be a list of your pet peeves. It could be something that happened that morning. It could be about your love of toast. And so it is a way, it could be a song lyric or a poem. And I think that is a way of reminding people that writing is play. It really is play. And I like to get to that beginner's mind, that idea of well, why not? Or as I say, it's improv. Yes. And
yes.
So
and
I think that is one of the things that I would deeply encourage in the classroom is experimentation and fun, and letting students come to it and enjoy and do it their way, and find it. But the way that this happened, and this I think illustrates that point, which is that during COVID in the spring of 2020, my friend Grace Kendall, who is my editor at FSG at Macmillan, we've been friends for a long time, but we'd never worked together. Well, she and Elizabeth Lee sent me this article from The Atlantic on the bridegroom's oak, which is an actual matchmaking tree in a forest in northern Germany. It has its own postal code. People have written letters to it. They found, like their spouses, the loves of their lives. They found lifelong friends, pen pals. It's like analog Tinder, or as I call it, timber.
I see what you did there.
I know. I'll show myself out. But it's a real tree. And Grace and Elizabeth had said, this is such a fascinating story, and I feel like you could maybe do something with it. And I was reading it, and because something's deeply wrong with me, instead of reading it and going, oh, what a romantic tale, I said murder and espionage. But I did wonder, wait a minute, if anybody could have access to this tree, what happened to it during World War II? Maybe the resistance could have used it, spies, what have you. And that just got me thinking. And I was like, huh. And I thought, well, I don't want to set an entire book in northern Germany at the start of World War II, quite simply because I was like, I don't have the knowledge base for this. I can't get to Germany right now. I don't speak German. I have German friends, but to do an entire book that way would be a really heavy lift. And then I thought, I was also thinking very much, this was the first Trump presidency, and I was thinking very much about the rise in anti-immigration fervor and hate speech, and also the fact that there was COVID and it was lockdown. We were isolated from one another.
Oh, yeah.
And so thinking about things that happen in isolation, and I thought, okay, how did people resist back then? Were there Germans who resisted? And I was really curious about that. And then I thought, but it needs to reverberate through generations. And I also thought, and here again, it's like weird connections that you make. I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to Ezra Klein. He was interviewing, I think it's Richard Power, and he'd written a book, Overstory, that was about trees and the mycorrhizal network. I never say that word right, and I apologize. But it was about how trees support each other through their roots. And if there's a little sapling that can't quite get the sun, they'll feed it and keep it alive. I was like, no one percenters among the trees. This is really cool. But I thought, okay, the story, since it's based around this tree, the tree is the thing that connects all of these timelines, like these roots. And that's what I wanted to do. And then the last element for me was that I also love fairy tales.
Yes.
And I grew up reading them, the gorier the better, because obviously weird child. But I think, as has been discussed about fairy tales, it not only teaches children that, yes, there are monsters out there, but monsters can be defeated. And I think that the other thing that was striking me about history as all this, rise in hate speech was happening, I was like, the living witnesses of World War II, of the Holocaust, of all of those things, they're dying. And so we don't have that anymore. And the farther we get from history, the more it can seem like a fairy tale itself. And I thought, okay, it's also a very clever way of teaching young people about history, is to frame it as a fairy tale, because sometimes things that are hard, we write them as fiction.
Yeah.
So that's how these elements came together. I will say, the punk scene, it was very sobering to me to go, 1980 isn't historical, because I was 16, 19. Yes. I did get to draw on a lot of my misspent youth for that, which was fun. And then, of course, COVID, my son had graduated college right into May of 2020. And, and also I had friends who were teachers, and I was watching them having to, as we were all having to adjust to that moment. And I just thought, okay, here's how we connect it. And also talking about resistance through the ages. Did I explain that?
love hearing.
Or did I
Yes,
total squirrel
it's
brain?
fascinating. Well, and then it leads us to, I mean, speaking of teaching, speaking of like the present moment, a lot of what we do and where we like really base our teaching pedagogy is in inquiry and asking guiding questions to lead students through things. So it's less centered on a singular text or like any certain text, but the text is the vehicle through exploring questions.
Yay,
and so
that's how writing happens.
Yep. Yeah,
What
right.
if?
Well, and it's kind of like we like to much of our audience's chagrin, we like to ask questions that pose to what extent, which is always a difficult one. But is there a line of questioning that you can see? Maybe resistance is the seed, but like, is there something in addition to that you think could be explored in a classroom through this book?
Sure. I certainly hope so. Well, my standard line about the book is that it's a book about love and resistance. And resistance sometimes, or love as an act of resistance, because I think when you're looking at something like Obergefell or Loving versus Virginia, love is an act of resistance. And, I refuse to allow you to control my love. And then, and I think also because my father was gay and I had a family that was modern family before modern family.
Yeah.
That has always been important to me too. I had a family like that. And then also resistance as an act of love, because I think we often think about resistance as being fueled by anger or disgust. But you have to believe in the future. You have to love it. And you have to love something enough to fight for it. And I think that is an important element of resistance. Hi, let me have just a little more coffee. How about that?
That's okay. I'm writing down half of what you're saying, so it's
but
okay.
Only half. Gosh, thanks.
My hand's just not that fast.
I'm amazed that anything I said made sense. But I think that I would ask, what are the things that you feel you would love enough that it would spur you into acts of courage? And what constitutes courage? And, I think one of the things that's super interesting to me when I did the research for this was that time and again, when I was researching members of the resistance, they were young people.
Yep.
There were two Dutch sisters, 14 and 16. They would lure Nazis into the woods where other people might have taken them away. But there were also like the Edelweiss pirates who started as this almost sort of, they would do like parody songs and all this kind of stuff. But then they started sabotaging munitions and rail lines and things like that. And they were teenagers. Of course, Hans and Sophie Scholl, the White Rose movement, which is why the band is called Sophie Scholl in the punk scene.
So many little nuggets. It's
17. The Adolfo Kaminsky, who was a French resistance worker who was the inspiration for the forgeries, because he was a forger. He made papers. He started that when he was 17 years old. So again and again, it's like, and the East German punks.
Yeah.
I mean, these are teenagers and they were, time and again, they were the ones out there. And I was really struck by that, by the beauty of it, by the hope of it, because, if there's one thing I've learned, it's yes, we need to know our history. And we need to know it truthfully. And we do need to know our transgressions. But we also need to know that in every generation, hope endures, hope survives, hope fights. It is an action verb. So I think I would also say, do you think hope is an action verb? And how would you define hope?
I have to tell you, I have chills. I mean, it's not often that Marie and I do author interviews like close together, but we told you before we started recording, we talked to Samira yesterday. I have to tell you, her answer to that question was almost identical about internment.
Yes.
And that's exactly why we're doing this series. And we love putting our authors together, because the next thing we wanted to ask you about are what are the other stories, right, that kind of echo these exact same, right? Because internment is not under the same stars. They are completely different stories, and completely different kids would resonate with those stories differently. And so I think that's kind of my next like segueing like from the questions, like let's go to the text. What are the sister, cousin, brother, uncle, grandparent? What's the family of text that belongs around under the same stars?
There's so many. I'll try to get in some. Obviously, I mean, internment is great.
But I didn't even do that till today, really. I mean, yeah, yes.
I'll call Samira and be like, our plan is working.
It is.
Yes.
It is working.
I would also say something like Wide Awake or Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan.
Yes.
Codename Verity, certainly. And of course, then, like The Book Thief.
Yeah.
Also, there is, I don't know if you would consider nonfiction, but
sure.
One of the books that I read that was so instrumental for the punk scenes is a book called Burning Down the House, Haus, by Tim Moore, Mohr, who sadly just passed away a few weeks ago at 49.
Gosh.
I know, I was shocked. But that book is all about how these punks helped to bring down the Berlin Wall. And it was fascinating to me. It was stuff I didn't know. It talks about the Stasi and informants and how they tried to get around it and the defiance and the way that they would make these mixtapes and, secretly pass them off to each other. I mean, it is such youthful, beautiful, youthful rebellion. I found it fascinating. And I think that it's also, it's a great text about how music and youth can come together to topple, authoritarianism.
I can think of half a dozen students right now who I have who would eat that book alive. They would love it.
I could not put it down. It was just fascinating. And of course, then, I could also recommend, I don't think you could do this for middle school, and I don't know what the climate is for this, but there's a German film called The Lives of Others. And it was from 2006. It is set in 1983 in East Germany. And it's about a man who works for the government and he is by the book. He believes the party line and, they're always they're always bringing people in, imprisoning them, sometimes torturing them. And then he is supposed to surveil this playwright who's actually pretty loyal to the party, and the playwright's partner, this woman, through the course of the movie, this hardcore, interrogator for the Stasi, realizes how corrupt the administration is, and everything he's has been taught to believe is now in question. And that reminds me of what it was I was going to ask for the question.
Yes, we got there.
How these days, one of the things that go through every timeline is about propaganda and misinformation. And so I would want to ask, how do you know if the information that you are reading or seeing on TikTok or wherever it is, how do you find out if it's accurate? And, what constitutes misinformation? How do you source things? So that, to me, that could also be a collaboration with, the librarian about, here's how, here are best practices, but also it's changing all the time.
All the time.
But The Lives of Others, I think, here is a man who is a dyed-in-the-wool party member, comes to realize that the flaws in his belief system, and then begins to make different choices. And I think that is always, anyway, I think that it could be also a companion film.
That's a phenomenal just like unit that we've just put together about like, how do you know what's true?
Let's add a couple more camp books. That's House in the Cerulean Sea. I mean, that's Linus's story, right? Like when he has to go through the orphanage and that whole experience. We're going to talk to TJ about that. And I think every single one of Ruta's books fits that list as well. So many of her protagonists go through.
I was thinking about I Must Betray You.
I was thinking about Salt of the Sea. I mean, for sure. I mean, you think about whatever your first Ruta book is like your Ruta book.
Salt of the Sea for me.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, so now I want to go teach. Okay, like let's go. I think I'd love to know, we're going to kind of start wrapping up here. I think before we go, I'd love to know what advice you would give to teachers. We talked a little bit earlier about it, like about helping future writers. What advice would you give English teachers as they're kind of thinking about the way that they do writing instruction and cultivating that love of writing? And then we'd love to hear more about what you're up to next.
Sure. I guess really sort of my first question is, how do we cultivate readers?
Yeah.
Because you can't write if you're not reading. And I think that reading encompasses everything from audiobooks, graphic novels, comic books. I'm not one of those people who's like, only novels. But certainly fiction does. Books are empathy builders.
Yes.
And that's really important. So my first thought is, well, we need to cultivate readers. And I genuinely would love to hear the answer to that from your teachers about how they are trying to cultivate readers, because it's so hard now, the distractions, the phones.
It is. Well, I was going to say, as a person who is in the classroom with 11th graders every day for 3 hours straight. And then I move on to theater, which I want to pick your brain about, but I don't know if we're going to have time today.
Sure. I'm happy to go as long as you need. Theater is also actually very valuable. I will say that I did a school visit one time, speaking of, and pertains to the writing. And I was supposed to give a presentation on my book, and it was a disaster. These kids did not want to be there. It was in an auditorium. And not only did they not want to be there, but it was the rare time that they just wanted to mess with me. And I thought, I have to change course. And I just said, you know what? We're not going to talk about any of this. We're going to build a story on its feet. And I thought, oh, please, God, help me do this. Let me figure out how this is going to work. And I got volunteers and I brought them up and I said, okay, I started asking them questions like, what's something that every story needs, and I was like, well, setting, I was like, yes, we need a setting. So let's and I said, and you can call on a lifeline if you don't want to say it. And then of course, so it was relevant to them and they could, razz their friends. But we got into it. We had a hero, we had a villain, we had a fear, we had doubts, we had strengths, and we did all of this. And I swear to you, it was just one of those, like, I am desperate and I've had theater training, so I'm going to do an improv exercise. We built a story on his feet. And after that, they wanted to hear about how I became a writer and all those things because we had established a connection.
Right. You had a relationship. Yes, you did. You did the fast track to relationship, which is to create something together.
And exactly. Yeah. And I think that is, again, it gets back to the fun. Like to make writing fun and relevant to them. And I've used a variety of workshops in short writing in class where they don't have time to overthink it or tell themselves that they're not good at it or any of that thing. And I tell you, every time somebody gets up to read something that they've written, I'm like, this is great. This is terrific. And it's terrific. And so using everything from I'll have postcards, all kinds of different postcards, it might be a city, it might be two people kissing, it might, be a dog. And I'll put them out there and I'll say, come up and pick the one or two that speak to you and then start to write. Or I might give them a prompt like, in the letter I never wrote to you, I said, or I will say, let's list some secrets. It could be secrets you have. It could be secrets that a character has. Secrets are always a great way to get into something. So it's coming up with, I think, writing exercises that give a jumping off point. So they're not just staring at a blank page, but that where I also will say, but you can write this any way you want. And if you want to ignore the prompt or it goes somewhere else, follow it. That's fine. But then saying, we're going to write for, 10 minutes. And then after that, keeping it short, I think helps to, I know it helps me. I write in 40-minute bursts and then I stop and I make a coffee or pet the dog or whatever. And then I come back and I do another 40-minute burst because you can do anything for 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, and the discipline that also ingrains, I think, is really good. And just like, it's a certain amount of bravery also that we're just like, like what you're talking about is coaxing small little brave moments out of kids, because everything is scary for kids. I will tell you that right now. Everything is scary for kids. And more so, I would say post 2020, everything is scary.
Yeah.
No, I have anxiety. No, it makes me anxious. No, it's so scary. No, I can't go talk to that grown up because they're so scary. And I'm like, girl, I am the scariest grown up you're ever going to meet because I'm so intense and weird. Really, it's not that bad. To quote the children, it's not that deep. Just be brave. But I think that's phenomenal. I want you to come to my class. Do you want to come to
would
California?
love to do that. It's really one of my favorite things. I prefer not to get up and give a presentation about a book or talk so much about myself. It's much more, I like to be that sort of hands-on, like, let's create something together. Let's have fun. I usually bring candy because that's also, that's actually a writing exercise, is to say, close your eyes. I'm going to put something in your hands. And then when they open their eyes, I'll say, what does this make you think of? Is there a memory that you associate with this?
I love that.
Write about that.
That's so cool.
Tactile. And they also, and I said, and yes, I'll answer the most important question first. You get to eat it.
Yes,
but it's
eat
like,
it. Yeah.
it kind of redirects their anxiety to like, oh, Swedish fish. I love Swedish fish. It's gelatinous. And yeah, so then, they've got something to play with. They've got something to eat. They've got something that, taking into account all their senses. And then they get into the page. So
when it distracts them from the anxiety or from the fear or from the whatever. Ugh, I love it.
It's all about getting to that place. So
no, it is. And it's hard. It is hard and it's scary. And there's like all the things, but like cutting off the air supply to the fear and cutting off the air supply to the what ifs and just do is so essential.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, you know that better than anyone.
As we're recording, I'm on spring break. And of course, like it's now, I'm at the tail end of my spring break and I was exhausted going into it for many reasons. Like we just did a big production and it's April and I'm teaching in 2025, but now I'm like, ooh, and now I have an idea for a playwriting challenge. And now I have an idea for
why we do this
project. And now exactly. It's a problem.
Can I give you actually a playwriting challenge?
Yes, please.
I had a teacher who said, go outside and write down everything you hear for 5 minutes and then come back in and read those things. And she said, what you choose to hear is valuable, because it shows you what is important to you. You might hear somebody saying like, oh my God, these shoes pinch. Or it might be like somebody might be saying, like, I don't have rent money, so it's interesting to see what your ear picks up.
Into.
Yeah. That's
oh my gosh.
I love that.
This is so much fun. Y'all, can we hang together?
Yes, please. Will you, I'm so sad that our time is running out though, but will you tell us what you are working on next? And then also where our audience can get in touch with you because they're going to be getting in touch. I can
Absolutely. Okay. So speaking of fear, during COVID, I decided, what's the thing no one wants from me? Oh, I know. I'll write a musical. And that's what I did. I went back to my theater roots. And during the pandemic, I got 12 of the 15 songs written and recorded.
Holy crap.
And I just, I've got this pitch, the story. I have to actually sit down and write the script now. I just turned in a new book this week. So now I can take a little time.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. But that has been, I sat down at my piano and I would say, all of the voices, who are you to think you could do this? You don't get to do this. And then I would say to myself, you know what? Plenty of people have written crappy songs. Why can't I just be one more? And that would be enough to kind of get me out of it. Like, okay, you're just playing. You're just having, a
little reset.
I've written songs before when I was in a band, but it was like, this felt, I'd say, oh, I'll just do one. I'll just do one and that'll be it. And then, after that, I was like, I kind of have an idea for a second one. I'll just do the second one. And then before I knew it, I had 12. But yeah, so that has been the love and light of my life, is to work on this, create my creative joy has been this project that was just new and challenging and exciting and fun. And hopefully is going to be a real thing.
I want to see it in workshop.
I would love to see it in workshop too.
Yeah.
So that, and then I just wrote, the book that I turned in this week is called Radio Free Texas. And it's set in a small Texas town in 1980. I call it, the pitch line is Almost Famous meets Pump Up the Volume, and a little Friday Night Lights, because it's these kids who start working at a radio station run by this kind of down and out addict, and they start to discover themselves through music, and eventually they take over the radio station. So yeah.
Amazing.
There you go.
Well, when you do start your social media empire, you take over, where can we find you?
Okay, I am at Libba Bray on Instagram. I did sign up for Blue Sky, and I think I'm on Threads, but I never post there. It's really, Instagram seems to be the one that works best for me. And I am going to start a newsletter, actually, because I loved blogging so much, and I loved the community that was built around blogging, where we could have conversations in that way. So that's on my website, and it will be happening soon. I just had to, get a book done first.
Yeah, just like write a book real quick.
It's not to write a book. Take the dog, empty the dog,
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much
hanging out with us today. This was absolutely delightful. And I really do, I expect an email from me.
Yay!
Because if you are doing virtual or in-person visits, I think that would be amazing.
I would love that. I would love that. It's always a joy, and I always learn so much. It's a very symbiotic relationship.
And my sweet little theater nerds would absolutely come unglued.
I would love it so much. And also, I just want to say that teachers are so important. And I know it's very hard at this time. You're up against so much. And I think about all of the teachers who got me where I am, and who really sort of nurtured me as I was.
Well, thank you so much. Yes. And just the love of stories. I'm that kid also that was in class that was just eating up all of the stories. And like you're saying, and you're just very inspiring to keep on thinking and creating and following your symphonic brain, because I think that is something that I'm going to hold on to and adopt as well. So thank you. All right, friends, I need you to know that Amanda and I went back and forth about maybe making this a 2-part because it's so long. But then we were like, yeah, but where do we stop it? Where do we cut it? What if people don't get to hear the second half of the conversation? And so if you have made it this far, when you make it this far, I want to say thank you for hanging out with us, because while it sounds like we had a good time, it pales in comparison to actually what a good time and what a delight author Libba Bray truly is. I did not want to hang up.
No, actually, and it was kind of sad that we had another interview right after hers, and it was really a bummer because I think we could have talked to her for so much longer. So if you love this interview, I would love for you to reach out to her on social media. Tell her that the Brave New Teaching podcast sent you, that you are excited to read her work. Grab Under the Same Stars and give it a read, and so many other of her books. And we're going to keep going. We've got another interview next week.
Yeah, back to camp we go. All right, friends, make sure that you have already gone to bravenewteaching.com/camp. Join us on social media. We are talking about all of these things, having little campfire conversations about our reads. And yeah, that was so fun. Okay, friends, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in Happy Hour and the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here, and have a great week at school.